Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Actually, I'm kind of excited tonight, and I guess I'm live. I hope I sound okay. Don't want to make you dizzy. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. I won't read off all the names, but no, tonight I'm looking forward to it. It's I like kind of doing interviews, and recently, I'll just give a quick background if I can. Is I kind of follow a community. I'm going to loosely call it the Slab City community, and just for a few years, and every once in a while you get some interesting people come and go, and character development, etc. And recently, I don't know, in the last month or so, a new gentleman started showing up in the chats, and he went by the name Blackbird, and he's going to be on the show tonight. And he's a very interesting gentleman. He's kind of mysterious. He kind of came on in a different way, just came on, and he puts out some interesting videos that I watched, and they're loosely on the subject. I'm going to call out. I hope it's not a disparaging word, called prepping. So it looks like he is he's preparing for what could happen in the future, and I don't think that's a crazy idea. I think looking around the world and just look at history, that things can go, I'm going to use the word sideways, at many different levels and many different ways. And I don't think it's I think it's probably a good idea to think about that in advance. It's kind of like, in our, I think about that lately. Like if it was 4 years before the Great Depression or 2 years before the Great Depression our country had, 100 years or so ago, what could you have done to prepare for it to make it a little bit easier on you? And I think about that a lot. In fact, it's a fascinating topic to me. And tonight I'm going to get someone's going to come up and join us. We'll see how it goes. And I'd like to get his ideas, but he's obviously from his videos, you'll see he's at an advanced state. He's been doing this a while. So he's a bit mysterious. I'm going to try to stay away from personal stuff. It's going to be hard. So Blackbird, forgive me if I go into the personal area, just because you're an interesting fella. But without further ado, I'm just going to bring you up on the street. Give me a peace sign if you're ready to come up here, sir. Good deal. All right, I'm done talking. Let's.
Hi. How's it going?
Welcome, sir. Thank you for giving us some of your time. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, how should I address you? Blackbird, is that going to work for you?
Sure, that'll work.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you again. Thank you for coming on.
Can you hear me? Are the bugs loud? Can you hear the bugs?
I can't hear the bugs.
Okay.
No, you look good. You're starting to grow a little bit of beard. Is that a new accessory?
Yeah, I'm trying to blend in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm real interested in your videos and talking about prepping, but I'll try to do this a little bit. And if you're in the people coming in the green room, no one's coming up. This is not a drama stream. We're not going to talk about old history and cuss and yell and scream. And I'm just going to keep Blackbird and I up on the screen until we get a little bit of a conversation. And at that point, if someone else has any questions, but it's kind of a way to introduce you to some of these people. I know you've been, but I guess the first thing I'd ask is how did you find this community?
Like most others, you go through YouTube and you watch one video and then it propagates. You start watching Slab City. This is a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Maybe 19 or 20. And just start watching that. Of course, the more videos you watch, it links to others and so on. And then I quit watching for a while and then wound up coming back and went from there. Started watching Cause. He was my first person I actually watched and had interaction with. And then from that to Slab City News. He was very gracious, very welcoming, and appreciate that. And it just grew from there.
No, it's interesting, and I'm definitely glad you came into there. I turned up my mic a little bit. I hope that helps, or I'll just have to scream a little bit. So, I'm not. Is that prepper a disparaging term?
I don't worry so much about terminology. It's the message and the idea. You can call it whatever you like. I'm indifferent.
Okay, so would you consider yourself being, getting ready for events in the future, unknown events?
You're never going to be ready for anything. Not really. You're doing things to improve your odds or improve chances to have a better outcome, but you're really never going to know what's going to happen. I mean, do we know we're going to have a pandemic? And all other kinds of things that happen. But just like anything else, you follow whatever news, if you even listen to the news or just social media chatter, you look at what's the top things being talked about, so you start getting in a rhythm of what the population is thinking. Or they're being fed stories in order to watch and it catches on. It works both ways. And then you plot it. You're not going to see the future. Future's here, but you're plotting the trajectory, which it gives you an idea where it's going. It's not, in my opinion, it's not really a question of, are we going to have problems in the future? I mean, to me, that's not debatable. We can debate on the when. That could be debated for a while, but we're starting to see things change now. And as like anything else, it's going to start picking up in pace. Don't mean to ramble on. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I think there's I'm hearing a lot of feedback or something. There's two prongs to this story. One is like the how, like, well, how do you what's a good way to prep? What are some things to think about? Another one is to me is also interesting is what you kind of talked about is society's kind of a thin veneer, and there's a lot, we in my generation's grown up in a very special bubble where we haven't, it's been, as far as humanity goes, I really believe I've grown up in a special bubble. I haven't had to go to war. I haven't never been hungry. I've been, very easy life. But that's a thin veneer that could be taken away. There's many ways it could be taken, politically, environmentally, we could have a number of things that could happen. And I agree. I think something will happen, and there's different levels of, is like the Great Depression, or is it just
it kind of, I mean, and also we look at it from living in the United States. If you happen to live in another country, it's already happened there. It's happened several times or decades. We have the luxury of living where we're at in a somewhat stable environment for a period of time. We only know what we know or have lived through within our lifetime. Cycles go in bigger swings than that. We just had the great fortune of having a stable period.
Very stable.
And I'm not knocking younger people. And by the way, whatever I talk about here, I don't do with the intent to upset anybody or trample on anybody's idea of anything. That's not my purpose. I'm just trying to convey some thoughts and ideas. That's it. But younger people, they only know what they've experienced within their lifetime. And I hate to say it, as you get older, you can draw back further and compare to what you're experiencing now. And I mean, that's the way it's been throughout history. But for me right now, it's significant in what I see in here.
So in a time frame, it's the last couple of years that it's ramped up, just this year since COVID. What are, there are a number of actually seminal events that are starting to happen. And what, in your mind, again, like predicting the date or when it could happen that's the $10 million question. That's probably impossible to do, but.
Well, you can be general, and when you think it's nothing, you're not going to have a event and then we're going into medieval. It's not going to happen that way. You're going to have it's going to be a slow decline. My opinion, they're trying to orchestrate, it's a controlled crash, slowly down, bounce off the bottom for a generation or two, and then maybe we'll ramp up again. But most people, and I hate to say it this way, but the general population really doesn't pay attention to what's happening. and world events, economics. Hold on a second. World events, economics. If you go back to 2019, December of 2019, the overnight lending rate, it's called the repo rate.
Mhm.
What that is each of these financial institutions are required to have liquidity, a certain amount of liquidity, day to day at the close of business. And what they do is, if they don't have that certain amount of liquidity, which is mandated by law, they're required to borrow. And overnight lending rate, they borrow it overnight, and they put up collateral and what have you. Well, you go back to 2019, there was a problem that the Federal Reserve had to step in a big way and guarantee these overnight lending rates. Most people don't, or whatever, it don't mean nothing. Yeah, it does mean something. It means that their assets they're holding, nobody wants them. Why don't they want them? But and it seems quite odd that around that time period, all of a sudden we start having these other market shocks and other events which coincide with it if you look at it from a pulled back perspective. Pat?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh.
Let me close my door real quick here. Go on. Animals. No, actually, I don't think I've ever heard that of the overnight
Repo,
lending.
they call it repo rate. It's an overnight lending rate.
That's what I'm here for, to learn some stuff. So cool.
I'm not a financial analyst or anything like that, so
Okay.
make sure I'm clear about that.
So 2019, there was a repo rate and no. Okay, let's finish that thought.
There's things been going on before, but that was significant. That's a blip that actually went up, and it was significant. It happened
In 2019.
correct, December
Okay.
of 2019. So,
Okay.
and then as we go into the pandemic or what have you, they're printing last year, currency wise, they printed 40%, more currency, an unbelievable amount. And these things, you don't feel the effect of it right away. It's delayed, it's lagged. But we are going to feel the effect. We're feeling the effect now. I mean, they've changed the, as far as how they chart unemployment, how they chart rising cost, inflation. They've recalculated that under different parameters to make it look better. And for the last year and a half, we've had on average 350,000 a week new unemployment, people applying for new unemployment. Now, economy is not growing. And it's mathematics. You can cover it up for a while, but eventually it's going to give. And everybody's wondering what's going to be the pin that pricks it. You just had a statement on the financials a few days ago, the Social Security Administration. They claim that they won't be able to pay out full benefits within 7 years. Well, it's going to happen sooner than that. You have a stock market that's all-time highs. Now think about this. All-time record highs within the stock market. Stock market is not the economy. Stock market is being artificially inflated, and there's a big reason for this. Because majority now pensioners, you've got the segment of the population, very large segment of the population. These are voters. They got a lot of pension wrapped up in there. And folks in California, how the pension, all that, they got to prop that up. They're going to prop that up as long as they can. But eventually, just like most of our viewers, I think, are old enough. In 2008, what actually started in 2006, The signs are there if you wish to look for them. If you wish to ignore them, you can ignore anything you want. But they always really tell you what's going to happen. It's whether or not you want to look at it and acknowledge it for what it is, not what you hope it is. But yeah, it's getting shaky. It's getting dicey now. But go ahead, Pat.
No, I've seen that. I think I'm just gonna mute you and see if that helps the thing. No, I've been seeing that for a long time where it was common sense, let's say 25, 30, and they talked more about it politically, that you needed a balanced budget. You know, like in a household, if you spend more than you're bringing in, eventually it catches up to you. And you just can't simply do, you know, at some point, you're either going to lose it all or you need to start tightening things up and spend less than what you're bringing in, or at least maintain that. And politicians used to talk about that a little bit. And it seems at least since 2000, every president has doubled our national debt. Like, it just seems not to matter. And then during the COVID thing, you're right. I've heard the term was we increased the money supply by 25%. Whether it's 25 or 40%, that's a fuck ton of money thrown into the economy. And that equals will happen to inflation. And I think we're already seeing that. But again, it's just, it goes against all logic that whatever powers may be allow the United States just to print more and more, like printing money like it's going out of style. And it just seems common sense at some point that's going to catch up to us. But when you talk about that stuff, which goes down to some fundamental things, is like the whole idea of currency or money. You know, that's actually a fascinating topic that you can talk about. But in my mind, money at any level is faith. It's based on faith. It has to be. And there's some, we could talk about the petrodollar, which propped up America's money, I think, for a long time. One of the seminal events recently is, I think, Russia and Afghanistan or something are going to start, you know, or somebody's, you know, because you have to use the dollar to buy petroleum in the world market, if I'm not mistaken. And if that changes, that takes away from the value of the dollar, because it legitimately has, you know, you talk about gold, but actually what's more important than gold is energy. And I'd love to talk about that with you, because that's what we use is energy. You can't use gold. You know, I don't give a fuck. You know, this whole idea about gold, it's bling. That's what gold is. It's just bling. We use energy, you know. So no, I agree. It's just it's real interesting times, and and that's why I don't think it's real crazy to think something bad could happen. And yeah, what is the pinprick? What is it? Is it, it seems to me we have a combination of things that are kind of coming out at us. Could we handle a big storm or a big earthquake, or who knows right now? I don't know, but I agree with you. But it's the whole money thing. Isn't that kind of just magic, smoke and mirrors?
Well, I'm going to go back here a little bit.
Okay. Good.
In World War II, as it kicked off, now I'm talking in general terms. I'm not going to be the professor you never wanted to have, but in general terms, World War II kicked off. We stood on the sidelines in the beginning, as Britain and other countries went at it, depleted their means and what have you, and then we stepped into it toward midway, mopped it up. We did the Lend-Lease program. We did all the rebuilding throughout Europe. And the thing of it is, at that time, Britain was bankrupt. All the other countries wiped out, what have you. We came out of that, and the people that navigated that put us on a footing which we became the world superpower. We had the bulk of the gold from all that. So we go into it, and what happens is, just like anybody else, from a management standpoint, you get the wrong kind of people in there, and then they start heading down to a path unsustainable. What I mean by unsustainable is we still you could exchange currency for gold. Countries could exchange currency and get gold. Well, France, we started going into Vietnam in the very beginning, or Korea, excuse me. And we're starting to print. We became the world's currency at that point. We get full faith and backing of the United States government. So we started printing to pay for all these endeavors that we got into. We got into the space program. You know, these things are expensive projects. Well, what happens is France started noticing that we were spending way more than what we were claiming to have. You know, so what did they want? They wanted to start getting their gold back. And eventually we let them do that. We let the countries, then all of a sudden, you know, whoa, this is going sideways here. So what Nixon did, Nixon closed the gold window. You could no longer exchange currency for gold. And it's mushroomed from there. So you go into the 70s, economic wise, we had to protect Saudi Arabia. We cut the deal. That way countries have to buy our currency in order to purchase things. That kept us propped up. And we did all the things in South America for resources and what have you, and all of the world actually. And I'm pro-American. I'm not, so don't anybody get me wrong here, but we're an empire. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We've
100%.
Yeah, I mean, some people take offense, but if you really look at it from a far back perspective, we are an empire. We're in decline. Our dollar, and that's another thing is, some people are really not going to understand. You have to know that what money really is. And when we talk money, we think cash, the US dollar, whatever. Actually, money for 5,000 years or longer, recorded history, has always been gold. And the reason why it had value, because it took effort to extract it from the earth. You know, you don't just print it and bam, you know, you buy it. It actually took physical effort to get it, mine it, refine it. It had different uses. Same thing with silver. Silver was actually money before gold. But anyway, so now, go ahead.
Just a quick interjection. A really important part of money is scarcity. That's one of the key components of any currency is scarcity. But I digress a little bit, and I think that talks about what the gold was, because if you have an unlimited supply of anything,
it has no value.
It has no value. So it has to be scarce. Go ahead.
So you know, and then you go through the Cold War, you know, the Star Wars, all these things. And we were funding all that, but we were writing bad checks. And your household, do you have a credit card? I mean, you can play this game for a while, you know, and you transfer your balance to another card, so on and so forth. But if you start, your income gets to a point that you can't service those cards. I mean, it's dominoes. It lasts for so long until it doesn't. Just like going bankrupt. I've never been bankrupt, but you know, it happens slowly. Then all of a sudden it happens at the end. It's very quick. You're done. We are in decline here because eventually, and everything, only I think 1 trillion of it is an actual physical currency. The rest of it's all digital. We have to, in these other countries, China, and I'm not anti-China, anti-Russia. I just look at it in a logical manner. Those countries are on the rise, and we're in decline. Thing of it is, from a geosecurity perspective, are we going to go quietly and calm? We will always use the dollar here. The dollar will always you'll always be able to buy stuff with it, but your stuff is going to come it's going to be more expensive. My concern is, are we going to go quietly into that good night, or are we going to do what countries in the past have done and start going down campaigns that bleeds the treasury even more and is a quicker decline? I think just from what they're doing, they're trying to do a controlled crash, and there's no pulling out of this.
Okay, let me. This is the question that really, when you say they want a controlled class, here's the big question: who's they?
Well, these are people. A politician is just someone you look at. They're a figurehead.
No, he's a pawn on a chessboard.
Yeah,
he's not playing chess. He's just the player on the board.
The ones the movers, the shakers, the people that have the strings, the people that span administrations. They're not elected to these positions. They're appointed to these positions, and they're there for most of the time beyond one administration. I mean, look at, I mentioned Henry Kissinger. I mean, these people were key players, and you'll see them turn up throughout time in one capacity or another. They never really leave. It's a it's a revolving door. They go from one spot to another to another. Sometimes those positions that they're occupying are in conflict with one another. On they're not serving our greater interest. So, I mean, it's always been that way throughout history. Whether you had Rome, you had Egyptians. I mean, whatever. It's always been the same thing.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Henry Kissinger was an interesting character, and I'm thinking that someone analogous to that in my mind today would be like Dr. Fauci, but in a different capacity. But he's been through one administration, for what, 20, 30 years. I honestly think if he was a decent human being, he would resign. That's all.
Yeah, they're not decent human beings.
He's not effective anymore, and he's lied and doesn't matter. Anyways, I don't want to go off into that wormhole, but so they are when I look at someone like Henry Kissinger, because I think money has a lot to do with it. I think money and power is a weird dynamic that a lot of people, I don't completely understand it. I think you need to be in a certain mindset to understand the seduction of power, and Henry Kissinger was one of those guys who had a lot of power. But like the money, like Henry Kissinger was a government guy, so they're not like filthy billionaires. So,
well,
I don't know, but then again, I don't know.
There's a lot of money offshore. I'll just put it that way.
There is, but again, if things collapse into it depends what level and how sideways it can get. But I've always believed that you can have all the money in the world, but if everyone around you is sick or miserable or trying to steal it from you, it's probably not a pleasant place to be. You kind of want you want everyone to rise a little bit, right?
Well, they don't have total control over things. Everybody thinks, oh, the government, they can do anything and everything. They're human beings just like anybody else. They don't always get it right. And last couple of decades, they haven't been getting it right. And there's just like in the financial situation, you think the Federal Reserve can do some things within the market they're not going to be able to push it, but they can nudge it. You have the housing market is big. Stock market is smaller than the housing market. The housing being mortgage-backed security, all these other things. And then you have the bond market. Bond market is massive. They can do things in there to manipulate, but they don't have total power over it. They're trying to do everything they can. They know what's going on. They know this has been coming. They've been kicking this can down the road for a while. Of course, just like anything, like an administration, it's not going to happen on my watch. It's the next guy's. You got that over and over and over and over again. Each time, whoever steps in, you have to realize, the game goes on. Just the characters change, and some of the methods, but the game goes on. And they always try to put it off. And when it does happen, they're not going to tell you how bad it is or the extent of how bad it is. They're always going to tell you everything's great. You ever notice on there, everything's great. Everything's great. When you go to the store, it's not great. When you see the numbers that are not fudged, it's not great. It's controlled. They're trying to control the mass perception of the population. You can do that for a while, but even the average person on the streets go, hey, wait, man, this something's not right here. And that'll build and that'll build. It's going to get dangerous. You go back throughout history, in times of crisis, you're going to have politician safety in question. Do you really think there's a reason why certain people that are billionaires and upper echelons that they don't have these, like New Zealand? I mean, they've got compounds and what have you. They know what's going to happen. They just don't know how bad it's going to be, and they're trying to do it gradually. It's the wild cards that could happen that they're not going to be able to control it, or it's going to be it'll just like government. Something happens, their response isn't immediate, and it's not only not immediate, it's usually lacking, or it's the wrong kind of response. This thing can go sideways and go sideways quick. You know.
No, I think that is a weakness in our government compared to, say, like China, where it's a top-down. One of their strengths is they can plan 20 years ahead. You know, we plan for a year ahead.
They still have the 5-year plan. They still do their 5-year plan.
Who does? Congress?
China.
Yeah. But yeah, they're pretty serious. You know that. You know, when you have that top-down government, you can do it. But yeah, this country more reacts to problems and anticipates problems.
Well, they're doing polls. Okay, what's the which way is the wind blowing? You know, write my speech. You know, and then when we go to this other location, tweak a little bit to cater to that audience I'm speaking to. If anybody ever got into politics and you wanted to do the right thing, you're going to be weeded out very quickly. I mean,
Absolutely.
you might get one term. But you're going to get a visit. You're going to get a visit from lobbyists, and you're going to be. It's going to be understood very quickly. How long your stay is going to be there. I mean, we are, and I'm not. I got to be careful here because I don't want no one thinking I'm going off on a nut here. But we are beyond a political solution. We're not going to magically vote one person in office and everything's going to be great. This thing's fun. I mean, it's fun.
It is one of the institutions that that for a good functioning democracy. I think our forefathers were pretty smart guys, and and we've thrown a lot of that away. We've actually flushed a lot of down with the protections that they set up for us. We have flushed them away. But one of the main institutions is the press, and now that the press is corporatized and monetized for profit, these 24-hour news, they have sorely let down our country as far as we're a very dumbed down country, and we're not told how many. I think we should know which countries we bombed yesterday. We don't know. There's so many things they will not tell us. And
you ask yourself, why is that? Because they're trying to control public opinion.
Absolutely.
There's no such thing as journalism anymore. I mean, I remember in the 70s being a journalist, you were a freedom fighter. You were going there, you're showing the corruption, you're pointing out these things. You don't have that.
No, in the 70s, in the 60s, 70s, when I watched the news, it came on at 5 o'clock at night. There were 3 channels. It was done at 5:30, and then it came on again at 11 o'clock at night for half an hour. That was the news of the day. It wasn't a profit thing for the stations. It was a public service, and it was was it perfect? Absolutely not. But at least it had some integrity. Now it's like a casino. How do we get everyone? What words do we say so they'll tune in? Trump was a boon to those because you either hated him or you loved him, but he drew in viewers, and they learned how to play that game. And I see it. They ring a bell, ding, breaking news, and
if you go back 100 years, generally speaking, the population trusts the government. Generally speaking,
even when I was young.
Yes. All your institutions and stuff, the population generally trusted them. And as you start moving forward, World War I, World War II, loose lip sink ships, national security, all this other things, still people believed in it. Then when you start noticing, when did that start changing?
I'm thinking around Vietnam.
Correct. And if you go back, and it's accelerating. It's accelerating. If you go back 15 years from now, I've seen a massive acceleration. That it's almost like what are we racing to? We're racing to the bottom. And you always ask yourself, well, how long can this go on? Well, you'll never be able to pinpoint it. I'm not good at picking dates. I can see trends, and what have you. But you're never going to guess the exact date when it's going to. Each person's, the reality of the situation is going to come differently. Some people, the reality situation is going to get real until it's like right here and you can't ignore it anymore. By then, the panic, the individual panic is going to dominate you, and it's going to cloud your thought process on decisions that you're going to need to make at that time.
And when things that we take for granted become scarce, civilization, that veneer I was talking about before, is very thin and very fragile. And I thought recently when there was a cruise ship, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, that the engines went out, so it was just stranded out in the ocean. And within 3 days, it was like Lord of the Flies. They had developed teams, and fighting happened, and resources were being taken from each other. And this was on a cruise ship. Mm-hmm. And that happens really fast. And yeah, if you're not prepared for it, it's not going to be pretty at all.
It's a fact. It happened in Katrina. Initially, people will bond together. Initially, but that wears off quickly.
When things become scarce.
Correct. If the event or the situation goes for a period of time, yes, it will go tribal. You will draw lines, and you will, weigh out who has value and who does not have value. We're never going to shed that. I mean, it's going to be with us. So keep that in mind, and you need to act accordingly. Another thing that would happen during the Great Depression, majority of the people didn't live in the cities. You still had farms and what have you. And people had their own gardens and stuff. They produced a lot of what they consumed. And also you had what we don't have now, family unity, family bonding, working together. You actually knew who your neighbor was. Last 15 years, I don't even know who my neighbors are, let alone want to talk to them, because for whatever reason, same thing back and forth, whatever. We don't have that advantage now. So when things go bad, who are you going to count on? You know what I mean? It's troublesome. It's something to worry about. That's why I always talk about strengthening your relationship with your family and friends if you can. Make an effort. It's a two-way street. But yeah, you need to think about it, because it's going to happen. Whatever, what you choose to do to increase your odds, it's up to you. I mean, no one's coming to help you. I mean, you're going to be on your own for a while.
And that's a little. I sound like a monster or something. That kind of what intrigued me about you a little bit, as far as like I'm just going to use that word again. Preppers go. Usually people are a lot more secretive about that. They don't want to share that information. And you came into this community. I don't know if you're blood related to anybody, but you're very open about sharing what you do, which is unusual.
You see what I wish you to see. There's always more to the story.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And I do these things because 90% of the people, I get more than that, 95% of the people that may be watching and listening to this, they're going to discount it, not even take any credence to it. But there's going to be a few in there that's going to say, hey, wow, it's kind of, maybe I should do this or whatever. And that's all, that's being realistic. I've done things, and a lot of this goes in, you have to do a lot of thought into it. Where you live, your geography, right, your family structure, social structure, relationships. All these things factor into it. Of course, your economic situation determines, these are all things that have to be looked at, evaluated, and make adjustments where necessary. You're, like I said in the beginning, you're never going to be ready. You're going to be more ready than the other person. There's danger in that too. If you have friends that go out and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having a $800,000 house. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong having a couple Mercedes, whatever. Okay, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But the guy, your neighbor or whatever, that's driving the Honda, you know, and squirreling stuff away and doing all these things, yeah, you're cordial, you know, you go back and forth for barbecues, kids went to school, you go blah, 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 blah. But when things go bad and stuff, that person that's been driving the 10-year-old car and doing all these things, is it his obligation to support or help, you know, that other person just from because they've been cordial with one another? You need to think about these things, because now it makes no difference. It's not really that big. But these small nuances, these small things will come into play. I'm sorry to say.
No, when I look at the very fundamentals of life, you know, you got to look at, I look at it real basic. You need oxygen, water, food, and shelter.
Right. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Those are like, you know, if I was going to make a list, you know, I want to plan for ahead. Those would be the top on my list. Where will I live? Where will I get food and water? And, you know, those kind of geography and everything. And I wouldn't want to be in LA. I wouldn't want to be in New York City. I would want to be where, you know, you possibly could grow your own food. A piece of land that has air, you know, that you can, part of my business is growing food. And those are the kinds of things I would look at, you know. And then after that, you start looking at things like, well, you know, what kind of currency, or what will I need, and what'll be tradable. And I'm big on it. I could talk with energy about all kinds of things. Some of the things, you know, I saw, you know, a lot. I love what you do, you know, with the solar panels, and you know, that's kind of the, you know, the more of the luxury end, because electricity is a luxury. It's not, you know, necessity like food and water is. But those are great things. And I would tend to think, you know, just let me throw this out. To me, things that would be important if you could, and it's probably not easy, would be fuel, like diesel or gasoline. What would be more valuable than fuel, and ammunition? Those two things would be things that I would think would be important to stock up on. What's your take on that?
And again, no one's going to know the severity of it.
That's right.
I personally, I think we'll dip down, but I don't think they'll let it go too far, because
they have control. Well, they have control of how far it can go.
Well, that's true. I mean, you're going to have misbehaving. I mean, it's going to happen, you know, on different levels, depending on cities, population densities, all these other things. You're going to have all that kind of stuff, and I don't want to frighten anybody. I don't want to scare anybody or create anxiety or anything. That's not what I want to do. If you could have 3 months or stuff's kicked back, not only you're going to feel better, you're going to be a lot more calmer and relaxed about it. You don't want something to happen and you're scrambling to respond to it, whether that be food or transportation or security issues. You know, you don't want to have to scramble to meet that need. Now, of course, yes, I do, you know, prepping, whatever, but it doesn't engulf my life. I planned out what I was going to do. Not the whole plan didn't work. I got one area in which I have to make adjustment, but I sleep like a baby. I'm not concerned with, you know, if I lose lights. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember back, yeah, you lose your power once in a while, but that was due to a storm or whatever, you know. Now it seems like it happens all the time, you know. And then we have little stuff that's starting to go. Trash collectors, for instance, you know, things you wouldn't even think about or care about. But where I live now, there's a situation, and yeah, it's a thankless job, you know, and whatever, but it's a necessary job. You ever been someplace where there's no trash collection? You're opening up all kinds of issues there, you know, as far as public health and so on and so forth. But you start looking for little things that are not being taken care of. You'll see clues. I mean, if you know what, just like anything, if you know, if you ever inspected any place or you went in there, you know, generally they'll talk to you, you know, as you're going through the thing, you know, hoping to distract you from looking, you know what I mean? But if you know what you're looking for, you'll either see it or you won't see it. But you have to be aware of it. And I'm not saying get fanatical about it, but just have some extra stuff. Don't go hoard, because another thing is too, you're going to start seeing villainization. They're going to start villainizing people that have more than what they deem to be sufficient in that house. They're hoarders. They're doing something wrong. They're hurting the bulk population. All these kind of mindsets. If you look out throughout our history, our country's history and stuff, you can see little things that the government has subliminally put in public addresses and what have you, trying to guide a certain mindset. Go ahead.
Man, you brought up a couple of great points that I'm gonna go back on. One is, like we do lose power more, and when I lose power, it sucks. It's like my whole world, I can't do this. I can't. My whole little world is so artificial, and that's and when you talked about the depression back, if we had a similar event to the depression at that level, which wasn't completely devastating. It was a rough patch for our country for sure. But if the same thing happened today, we don't have as many people who are self-sufficient. In fact, we have tons less. We're much more artificial based upon, as far as like, if the internet goes down, planes can't fly. They don't fly planes when the internet is down. We're so artificial now that electricity has kind of made us very weak. In a way, it's very nice to have electricity, but we've lost a lot of those skills that we used to have.
Well, here's another example. I mean, mostly, and there's exceptions, people that grew up on farms and conditions, just disregard what I'm going to say. Most everybody here is growing up with indoor toilets.
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah. Imagine you don't have your indoor toilet. Imagine trekking out, depending on where you live in the United States, 30 below, 20 below zero. You got to be careful, because your ass hits that and then you can't get back up. These things, we are accustomed to it. It hurts me to say this, because I love my country, but she's slipping.
Big time. Yeah. Big time. And the things that like you mentioned, trash, we absolutely take for granted. Our trash gets put away. We don't see it anymore. It doesn't build up in our yard or whatever. The fact that we can turn on a valve and water comes out, we take that so much for granted. That is so new to the human race. And that's what we've never carried water, and you might have to carry water.
Possibly. Say, for instance, your municipality, your water treatment facility, for whatever reason, and see, and another thing is, you notice within the last couple months, all these failures. What, just people forget how to do stuff? How many times are you going to block the canal? People forget how to steer ship. What I'm saying is, it's too out of the ordinary to be ordinary. It's too coincidental. Okay, here's a prime example. Air Force, you have a jet, it has multiple engines on this jet. If you lose an engine or whatever, that's odd, okay? Whatever. You lose multiple engines, that's outside the realm of possibility. There's outside force in it. In fact, you don't just lose multiple engines. It don't happen. These people all of a sudden losing the knowledge and how to do things. It's too coincidental. It's too coincidental, in my opinion.
Interesting. So if you were to, which is actually kind of, in my case, I really haven't done a whole, I've thought about it. These are things I've been thinking about for years. How could you plan ahead for, if things go sideways? What would you, make a short list on like, say, these are, think about this. I'd like to hear your opinion.
We all have to eat. If you're gonna go, don't buy a couple extra items every time you go. Just be stuff that you're gonna eat, you're willing to eat. If you have a family and children, that's a whole other thing. They're not at first, unless they get really hungry, and then they'll adapt. But initially, they don't want to eat anything that's out of the ordinary or what they're not used to. Comfort foods and whatever. It really comes down to what happens and how long it happens. Like I said, I don't think it'll be a long-term deal. I've gone kind of big because I'm not just preparing for myself. I do look out for other people outside my family as well. But I don't think they'll allow it to go on for too long. Another point I want to bring up. Yes, you had during the Depression, Dillinger and the gangsters and what have you robbing banks. Okay, that happened. But you did not have the kind of hate type crime and activity that we have today. It just didn't happen back then because generally speaking, and there was always on the pie chart, a slice, and it's always been the badder elements, but you didn't have it to the extent that we have it today. And once they realize, it's open season, well, not just to rob or whatever, but also even scores. But anyway, I digress.
No, well, I'm also thinking is we have this whole, how many, that are used to this generation that does what's that video game where they all fly in, and land in a little, 100 people land. Fortnite. Have you ever heard about that game, Fortnite? Anyways,
no, I don't play.
It's one of these things where this is like you come in with nothing and then you loot and rob and kill each other until you're done. So there's that's in it.
Sure.
I don't know, it's a sidetrack, but that's kind of a mentality people have these days.
And the security option, and again, there has to be tailor made to your situation. If you live in a really dense population that there's not an abundance of things, you might want to consider at what point do we go to grandma's house, or at what point do we say, I'm pulling out, we can't sustain this, we got to go. If you're going to stay at home, you might have to look for longer term items to hold it out. But it really comes down, like I said, how long, what happens, how it happens, and the duration of it. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of what ifs. I can't see the future. I just see things that are happening and the acceleration of what's happening. And that's another thing that's got me alarmed because, this has been coming for a while. This isn't an 18-month thing. This has been in the works for a while.
I agree.
I'm concerned with the pace and the information release, the news stories. You'll go from, as an example, you'll have a news story come out, and it's written a certain way. Say, just as an example, CNN, and then you flip over to MSNBC, and they're saying that same news story almost verbatim.
I know.
Using the same word. These are scripts being released to these organizations to broadcast what they want you to know, and it's been that way for a while. But I've seen that way for a while. But it's on a new level now. These are all. Life's going to go on. It's not going to be Mad Max or anything. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. I don't think it'll let it go that far. I really don't.
I think in certain areas, like I've been in LA when they had a power shutdown where you couldn't get gas, or it could get bad down there. Really, a big area, metropolitan area like LA I would not want to be there. I would not want to be in that area when But no, this is the interesting conversation, sir.
Why I'm saying is don't get me wrong. You're going to have your fires here and there, but when they decide, okay, we're going to button this up, I think you're going to see certain elements of the population that are misbehaving. They're going to be dealt with very sharply and very quickly, and there's not going to be. It's going to be dealt very quickly, and the message will be put out there. You fall back in line, or you're not going to be a ongoing concern.
So like a martial law kind of situation?
You said it, I didn't.
I did say that. So back, I don't know what, in the 2000s, there used to be a lot of talk about FEMA fences and the barbed wires pointed in the wrong direction, and they're there to keep us in these camps. Do you have any insight on any of that stuff?
No, I don't. No.
Yeah, I don't either.
If anyone are interested, go back the last couple administrations. Really look through what executive orders that they've put through. I mean, you'll start seeing, whoa, you look at something and you see a piece here and a piece down here and one off here that means nothing. You start bringing them together and stuff. It ain't by coincidence. I mean, they go ahead.
Can I tell you a couple? Well, it's really bad feedback, so I'm not do it.
I'm sorry, I'm
gonna mute while I'm talking about this. I saw a couple really big ones, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. The first one was probably after 9/11. They went hard after, like, there's no such thing as a right to privacy. Then all, that kind of, we kind of slowly let that, well, I don't have anything to hide, so it doesn't matter. Before, the government couldn't look in your envelopes in the mail, but now they can look in your phones, and that's okay. To me, that was a pretty big deal. We kind of let that go, and we said, okay, we're not a terrorist, so I'm not worried about it. The government's not going to look at my stuff. Well, actually, they look at everybody's stuff. And another one was, and this is little known, it's very little known, but it happened during Obama's administration. And I'm not going to blame Obama because every fucking congressman signed it. I think it was the defense bill of 2011 or 2012. And in that, it was very little on the news, which really sucked but in there's a thing that says if you are declared a terrorist, you can be held indefinitely, even if you're an American citizen. So what that means is your right to habeas corpus, or right to a trial by peers, has been taken away. And that's one of the, they talk about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is meaningless if they can take your right to a free trial. And they have. And that's, and it wasn't just Obama said he wouldn't sign it. He signed it. Fucking 95% of the politicians signed the bill, went through as a defense bill, but now the government can take away our right to a trial, which is probably our most fundamental right that we have. And we let that happen, didn't really get talked about. And those are two pretty big things that we've lost in the last 20 years, in my opinion. And I've said enough. I ramble on this.
Yeah, you're right. Now, some people will say, well, if that time happens, I'm going to, because I know this is recorded, I gotta be careful. They're gonna defend themselves and whatever. Okay, or what? I understand that, but timing is everything. You don't want to involve yourself into something too early. You know what I mean? You need to do it at the proper time. If you're gonna, whatever you do in life, you get into something too early, you weren't effective, and you're no longer a factor in the big picture. I understand that kind of talk. People are gonna the second and all that, but you worry about, they're listening to everything. They've been, Patriot opened all that. You think they built that data center in Utah for no reason? They're collecting everything. They collect everything. Correct. If you are somebody, do it. Like I said, I have no intention to anger anybody here. That's not my intention. These are just my thoughts.
That's what you're here for.
Right. Now, you have the right to do whatever you want. I'm not going to say either way. You do whatever you want. As long as you don't interfere with me in my life in a negative way, you can do whatever you care. But if you choose to go public with certain type of statements and certain type of things like that, well, yeah, you're going to go on a list. And if things go really bad, you don't think there's going to, depending on where you fit within there, how you're assessed, Yeah, or we'll do it subtly. You'll get a notification, to come down for some kind of processing. You have to be. Don't be loud and outrageous, and you thinking that's going to change what's going to happen. It's all that type of response to anything. It's theater. It's theater. It's used if you think you can bluff the other side in getting your way in something. You're dealing with something that's not. They're not going to. You're wasted. You're not going to be taken seriously, and you're going to be. You'll get rounded up. But that's my opinion.
So, in recent times, is there any events that you saw that said, "Hey, this is really getting serious"? Like you mentioned the one about the overnight loan. I think I forgot already what you called it, but
overnight lending rate. It's called the repo rate. Repo.
So is that one of the events that is just another in the column of things not a good sign? Would be that? What are a couple more, and what would you look for in the future, or like you'd say, oh shit, that's a
right. Well, like the pandemic we have now, I'm not taking either side on that. I have my own opinion. That's just it. It's my opinion. I'm not pushing my opinion on anybody. But the timing of it, okay, for instance, if something goes wrong in what you term martial law, well, what they want to do, they want to keep the population buttoned down while they get a handle on things, right? That's the whole reason for martial law.
Yes.
Okay. So what happens is and we're the world currency. There is notable problems going on behind the scenes. Like I said, the 2019, you started seeing signs that it's been artificially pumped for a while, but you're starting to actually see cracks developing. And what happens is, well, maybe this is a hypothetical or hypothesis. Well, wow, we don't know how long we can keep this going. You have the plunge protection team. It's an organization that goes in there and they will buy certain securities or whatever. If they drop too much, executive order, they're real. It gets to the point that these shock waves are getting to the point we can't control them. You talked about money, gold or silver market. When Nixon took us off the gold market, they created a whole paper derivative market. You're trading gold and silver, but not the physical items. You're trading paper. So you have a paper market that's 20 times bigger than the actual physical market. All these things, the shock waves, and they get to the point they can't control it. They might say, well, hey, look, during the brief, and of course, one president ain't gonna make a difference. But anyway, we don't know how long we can keep this together. It's a day-to-day struggle on how we're gonna control this and navigate it. Then you have all these other wild factors going on. Other countries doing their deals, bypass this and all that, get to the point, look, we need to start slowing this thing down. We need to start slowing it down. So what could we do in order to slow the economy? All these other things like I said, this is just a what if scenario. We create all these things in order to slow the economy and all these other things as we're slowly bringing this baby down to a more manageable level. That's one possibility.
So you brought up the Nixon and the gold. So do you think that was a pretty seminal event? And would your opinion be that a gold standard would be better? And then I have a question about that.
Well, part is okay. Interesting. Okay. Our economy is so big now, it would take a tremendous amount of gold. I see a percentage backed by gold thing coming out. China, undeclared, China has an estimated 20,000 tons of gold. What's more likely going to happen at some point in the future, they will back their currency with gold. And when that happens, it's going to send shockwaves. We, the United States, claims we have 8,000 tons. Whether we have that or not, who knows? There's a lot of gold lending going on. You're hearing now that the Fed or the U.S. Treasury is talking about a Fed coin. What they want to do, they want to get you away from cash completely and just have digital. Where everybody thinks, well, that's great. I don't want to touch dirty money or coinage or whatever. I have to deal with that. No, that's not good. Because if you ever heard of what a negative rate would be, if say you have $1,000 in your account, well, you know, you need to spend more to be a good consumer. If you don't spend so much per month, you may be taxed 1%. Okay. Or you're an individual. This individual has been buying too many candy bars. Okay, your ability to buy those candy bars, you can't do it no more. Or gasoline or whatever, you know. Or how often do somebody have their credit cards or whatever by mistake froze up and you have to call them and find out what's going on, or some kind of, you know, they decide, well, we're just going to shut your stuff down. You can't buy anything. It's coming, folks. It's coming. This isn't just me talking. Do your own research. Fed coin. When they start talking about something, it means it's already in the works. They're working on it. It ain't, you know, it's coming. They're just slowly getting you used to it.
And actually, one thing I don't like about the blockchain technology, I think that might be what you're talking about with digital currency, with, you know, the Bitcoin or whatever.
Yeah, Fedcoin would be different. It would, go ahead.
But anyways, to me that's even scarier because it's so artificial. You need a computer. You need shit tons of computers for that to happen. And if the internet goes down, which it could, you know, it's vulnerable to solar storms. A few satellites get taken out by space junk or by on purpose. We could go, you know, we could lose our internet for a while. That means the currency would disappear. Going back to that gold thing real quick, that's always what baffled me about gold. And I heard this before. The amount of gold that's known to exist on Earth or that's been mined and minted could fill up 1 or 2 Olympic swimming pools, and that's it. It's not like it's a whole lot. It's, you know, it's heavy, but it's not like pyramids of gold out there. It's a limited number, which why it's valuable. But to me, that would seem to me you would either hold back the economy, because how could the economy grow when you have a fixed amount of gold, so to speak?
Right.
And
right.
And inflation would just seem to me would go through the fucking roof if we were based upon that.
That's why Nixon took us off, because we were limited. If you have a gold window or gold standard of any kind, you're limited on how much currency you can print. You can't print more than what you got as far as gold reserves. That's why he came off of it. And that's why you went through the 70s, 80s, and in the country, the GDP and everything expanded. Well, we hit the point that we overexpanded. We overreached, and it's not sustainable. You go throughout whatever. If you occupy a certain area and all of a sudden your supplies get cut off, you can't hold it. You got to pull back. You got to decide what you're going to let go. You got to shrink back. It's cause and effect.
And you also mentioned this might play into it a little bit, because I do believe this is true. You mentioned France wanting gold. Well, also, I believe that's and actually in the 70s when we had that OPEC thing and all that crisis, and we, you know, the petroleum dollar and all that was getting bannered about. I believe Saudi Arabia wanted to sell their oil in gold, and we gave them gold for their oil for a long time, and because that's what they wanted. They love gold over there for some reason, but that might have something to do with it too. That because we shipped tons of gold to Saudi Arabia to trade it for oil.
No, Gaddafi wanted to do the same thing, and look what happened.
Yeah, to go off the petrodollar.
Gaddafi wanted gold for his.
He did.
Yeah, and no, we're going to bring democracy to you. I mean, this
didn't work out so well for Gaddafi.
No, and it was done as an example too. But these things are real. You have to understand. And I'm not condoning. Okay, hear me. I'm not condoning what they're doing. I'm not condoning it. They're dropping the ball big time. And also the people up, they're not the best and brightest now. You know, this isn't the greatest generation type mindset that think of other people, you know, we got some people navigating the ship that really should not be there. I mean, thick with narcissism. It's bad.
Politicians.
It's a bad deal. But just like anything, do it in moderation. If you, I don't, each person's individual circumstance. I mean, silver is never really considered a precious metal. It's more of an industrial type metal. You look at every commodity compared to their highs they've ever hit. You know, most of the commodities broke through. They're past their previous highs. Gold right now is a little bit below its all-time high, but it's gonna shoot up here soon. Before the end of the year, it's going to start going back up. You got silver. Now, everybody think, oh, silver or whatever. Silver is being intentionally suppressed. Silver has certain characteristics to it that cannot be duplicated. And the silver all-time high was at 1980 at $50. I think today silver's at 24. You know, of all these other commodities are way past their, are past their all-time highs. That's the greatest, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm not a financial consultant, investor, or whatever. My opinion, that's percentage-wise, bang for a buck, or not only that, but preservation or purchasing power, whatever currency you have. And it's silver starts, like anything. Once it starts to go, it's like a spring that's been compacted, and all of a sudden starts to go. It's going to shoot up. And don't get in a situation like a lot of these, people do with Robin Hood, trying to chase a stock that's already going up. That's stupid. You want to buy stuff when nobody else wants it. Now, I'm not talking Beanie Babies or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But you want commodities and things that are undervalued. Now, this isn't a get rich overnight thing. It's not. This is a long-term deal. You want to buy them when nobody else wants them, sit on them, and then enjoy the gain later on. The whole thing about the cryptocurrency, that was like a fluke. Okay, I don't really think they understood what it created. A lot of money for a lot of people. Well, I shouldn't say money. It created a lot of currency for a lot of people. But I think it's going to be more regulation. You're not going to see the wild gains like you had in the past. Somebody takes 10,000, throws it in there, and a couple, 5 years later, you got a couple $100 million. That's crazy. And then you take that and convert it into stuff, whatever. But purchasing power in the future will be a big problem. You go in history, dollar loses purchasing power because it gets pushed out of deals throughout the world. It will take more dollars to buy whatever stuff you need for your day-to-day use.
Well, can I tell you I missed the Bitcoin story? I'll get it in real quick. I used to go buy stuff from the Silk Road back in like 2011. And I used to buy 200 or 300 Bitcoins at a time for less than $2 a piece.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. But I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just it. The average, if you stumble on the average person, and I'm not talking down, please don't take it that way, but the average person really, to invest in do research on all this stuff and follow it, and it takes a lot of time. It will take up a lot of your time.
Oh yeah, and it's all still at some level a gamble. It's just more. It could be more an informed gamble. Like there's good guys who know about horses who do a lot of studying, so they can, blackjack players can read the decks, so you can change it a little bit, but it's still a gamble. You
talked about the future is going to be China. They will be the predominant power on the globe at some point. I mean, we will, once you get so far behind, the gap becomes bigger and bigger. And the Silk Road, the initiative that they're putting in, all that infrastructure, all that power. Somebody mentioned power generation, not just you, but others. It's going to take a lot of extra copper to do all that. It's going to take a lot of your silver, all these other types of things. So you think about that. Look at what government's actually going to do, and you can invest that way. Like I said, this isn't investment advice, so don't preface that again.
No, I want to give you a data point for China, because I saw this in the early '90s, and it raised alarms to me. And I think you alluded to a little bit earlier. America got soft. We got soft as a country, as people. We got soft. Other countries haven't yet, like China and India. They're not soft. Maybe they're getting the way. Japan wasn't soft for a long time. Maybe they're getting a little softer. It's if you get a generation of wealth, you tend, poverty has a way of hardening people, or it makes you try harder.
Right.
I believe that's true. Back in the early '90s, I used to work at a lot of research institutions and universities. This was something I did as a scientist. And what blew me away is that our graduate system, we have some of the best research universities in the world, bar none. Science, hard science, physics, chemistry, we have it here. There's only, out of all of them in the world, we have 99% of them here. And what I noticed was, we have this graduate system where they use graduate students, PhDs, to do a lot of the research. Well, it's very hard work for almost no pay. It's like $24,000 a year. But what I noticed was that most of the research docs, they call them, postdocs, that were doing in the laboratories were from India and China. And as a matter of fact, I was in one laboratory where it was Chinese students who spoke in Chinese, and they had a government watcher there, a communist person watching them, so they wouldn't. I don't know what the deal was. I was in the room with them, but at that point in time, I said, "Where are all the Americans? Why aren't we learning this technology? And we're just basically giving it away." Some of the best research there is, and we handed it over to China, and it had to do with a lot that we were trying to do it on the cheap, where they came over and were glad to work. A graduate student works 20-hour days. It's a hard, thankless job, and you're getting 20,000 a year, 24,000 a year. Americans wouldn't do it, but we exploited the cheap labor, and I think we're reaping those seeds that we sown. And I don't know if it's going to be good, but China's been kind of stepping up to the plate, as well as India. You'll see India is a pretty technologically powerhouse, but it has to do with us getting softer. It has to do with we want to do science on the cheap, and I just wanted to throw that out there as kind of a data point that says China is something that we should absolutely consider as a future powerhouse. And I rambled again.
No, they called it the brain drain. They had all these students come over, they'd get their doctorate or whatever, and then they go back to their mother country, and the investment starts over there. We paid for all that, but
absolutely.
Yeah, it like I said, we're a feeling. This didn't happen yesterday. I mean, this has been a long time in the making. America was the jolly green giant on the hill, and it took a long time to undermine it and hollow it out. And now we're starting to feel it. We're starting to feel the effect. We're not. I mean, we're still a nuclear power. We still have a huge military. The military will shrink at some. We'll stop our bases, decommission, and turn them back over whatever countries they're in to a certain percentage. It'll happen over. This ain't going to happen over. This is going to happen over years. This thing is going to wind down over a period of years. It happened. I mean, it's just normal progression of things. My opinion, a lot of bad management. What happens is we came out of World War II in a really good position, and we boomed the children from the ones that come up through the ranks and took over, living off the carcass of what they were handed. Didn't add to it, just lived off the carcass. And you have that type of mindset going, bad management. And, that's all I got on that.
And what really blows me away is out of, America is the best, has the most bounty on the face of the earth. We're probably one of the luckiest peoples there are in human history to be born here. Most of us, I'm not going to say all of us, but the choices we have for leaders absolutely suck. For the last number of times you go to the ballot box, are you serious? It's these two I get to choose from. Are you fucking serious? Something is working against us there, and that's where I see the they is. Why are the choices so pitifully fucked up?
The whole thing, at one time, my opinion,
Yes,
at one time, the election process was America. But all it serves now is to give the general population some kind of veneer that they have a choice or they have input in who's the leadership. You need to go, things will have to get so bad, the outrage from the population so high and so hot that lobbyists will be stripped away because they got free range. You have these politicians that go in office, the lobbyists short order come in, they, especially if you're a freshman coming in, they explain it to you very clearly, how it works. You're on board, you do what you need to do, and not just you, but your staff will have a position after your administration or after you come out of office. Wow, the rotating deal, it's until the population gets so sick and tired. We're a long ways from that. We're a long ways from that.
No, in
Like I
fact,
said,
we're the opposite path as that.
Yeah. Population have to get so pissed off, so tired of it, that they'll have no choice to at least do a mediocre cleansing of the system. And that might kick it for a little while longer, but this is too much has gone wrong, and the sheer momentum of it can't be stopped. It can't. This thing will run its course.
The sad part of it is that our founding fathers gave us the tools that we still have today to fix it. We could fix it in 6 years, 8 years, if we understood what was going on, but we don't. So we won't. They have us come, like when you said, and I'm going to say this: the powers that be, like you said, the veneer that we have a choice, they don't care.
No.
The two people that they give us, or whoever many, the choices that we have there, they're fine with either one of them. We have this idea that we're getting a choice, and you're right, we don't.
And this thing is on, it's multiple, it's like an onion. Different layers of it. The United States, I don't know if the United States, you would think it's independent and sovereign. There's deals that go between countries that it's like a breakaway type situation. They've been acting independently for so long. I mean, they're building their own deal. Deals are made between countries to dice up other, places for resources and stuff. There would have to be major overhaul. And honestly, do you really think we're going to overhaul this? Okay. Who's going to do it? If your house is filled with certain type of people, okay, people that are not looking out for the greater good, just looking for themselves, and the pirate mentality, take all you can, give nothing back. You're going to elect one person to go in there, or 50 or 200 to go in there and change? It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I know that pisses some of you people off, but that's the reality of the situation.
You're pissing me off. Damn it.
But anyway, that's all I got.
Since we did a little bit of politics, I'm just going to go. I think there's two. First of all, power corrupts.
Right.
It happens. It's the founding fathers gave us remediation that other, up until I think our country was the first experiment where it allowed us to say we don't want these guys. We're going to remove them without violence. But but two things I think would help our country get better. One would be term limits, because these fucking politicians get in office and then they're beholden to get donations to win the next election. Go in, be a patriot, do your fucking 4 years, 6 years, 2 years, whatever it is, and get out. And no one is not replaceable that I've met. I've never seen one of these assholes that say they're golden. Term limits. The second one is every bill that they sign in Congress or vote on, they have to. It has to be a limit. You can't have 8,000 page bills. Fuck you. You can't have an 8,000 page bill. You can have a 10-page bill, and it has to be read aloud. You cannot vote on that bill until it's read aloud in public and you listen to it. To me, if they did, because they sign bills, they have no idea what's in them. It's a joke. And the lobbyists put in the lobbyists type the fucking language and stick it in the bill. And those two things, I'm cynical, but if they'd figure out other shit to fuck us over, but
it's so far. That's what I'm saying. It is so far gone. I mean,
we're so divided. That's what scares me.
We will spend the next 200 years, and that's if we were determined and aggressive. We would spend the next 200 years trying to right this ship. What's the odds of that happen? No one's committed to nothing no more. You can't even get somebody, to do a job the right way, because, my opinion, but the likelihood of this ship being brought back up, it's not going to happen. It's not going to. I like to believe that, but I'm also a realist. I know it's not going to happen.
It's hard to look at a scenario that things get a lot better and get fixed, but it's real easy to see a fuck ton of scenarios where it could get a lot worse. It's hard. And if you just look at history, they don't repeat itself, it rhymes. This is what countries do. Mm-hmm. This is what they do throughout history. As we get more and more modern, things happen faster and faster. Like communication, it used to take months to communicate. Now it takes split seconds to communicate. So things happen faster and faster. So yeah.
You talked about energy. Okay, and it won't correct the situation, but it will delay and try to close the gap. I mean, at some point, the United States has always been, leading edge, the cutting edge as far as technology and ideas and things like that. You start seeing, like with the oil companies, like I said, I don't care who's in office, but this particular administration and what they've done from that, there's a shift. You can see a shift in it. If that continues on, just like with Philip Morris did, they maneuvered themselves into the food and got away from, percentage of their business. You're going to see the same thing with these oil companies. And you'll start seeing down the road technologies come out, new and whatever. That's going to really be groundbreaking. But I think we got a long way before that. They're going to try to siphon off as much as because these corporations, they can't make that. It's like a huge ship. You don't change direction on a dime. It takes a long time, especially committed. It takes a big time to turn it around or in a different direction. This isn't going to be overnight. This is a long, drawn out deal.
Well, even that, it's in a sense, it's destined for failure in the sense that the pressure for growth on say like a corporation, the stock market, there's a pressure for continuous growth. Well, mathematically, you can't have continuous growth.
You can't have exponential.
And that's what it is exponent. That's impossible. Yeah. So, but that's the pressure is to have that. So the pressure is to have something that's impossible.
I'd like to add one thing to it. Like I said, they always tell you in a roundabout way, why do you think they call it the Great Reset? They are going to restructure your society and your way of life. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Now you make a choice. Are you going to just oppose it to the point of detrimental to your family and whatever, or you adapt and survive? I mean, it comes back to I don't know if you watched that link I sent you, but it comes down to you fight what you can win. I got stuff I still want to do. I'm not, there's no leadership. There's no leadership. Who's going to point the way? Not only that, if you do get somebody there, who's going to follow? Nobody, because nobody has confidence. They're just biding time.
Now, do you when you talk about geography, I sound like a ghost or something. Do you look at other places in the world like as possibilities to bug out to, or if the shit hits the fan, would like Costa Rica? I've heard people say, or have you thought about like is any other places that are viable? Again, it depends what happens, but
from an economic situation, I'm not. The Bill Gates, all them, the Soros, and all that. They've got places. New Zealand was a big favorite. Costa Rica was years back, and of course, by the time you start hearing that, they going somewhere else that no one's going to snoop around and look for. They've got stuff on standby if it gets too bad that they get out of here. I'm staying with the United States. I don't have that kind of money to go buy, ranches in other countries, but
you could actually get on a motorcycle and drive to South America.
But think about it. You're traveling through a bunch of country. You have no connections. You have no network system. Most of the time, you're not going to know anybody there. That's a big deal.
That's true. That's true. You think about that stuff.
Yeah, been there, but you need to have some kind of a network, some kind of community or whatever, just to get through hard times. Just like in any type of, like raising a child, it takes a village. Same type of mentality.
Can I backtrack a little bit because I'm fragmented? Do you mind if I do that? I'm going to do it because you muted yourself. Talking about the stock market, I have a little theory on why the stock market is the way it is. Could be wrong. Maybe recent events might show I'm wrong. But if you look at the stock market in supply and demand, right? There's a supply and demand for things. That's how costs kind of basic of economics. Well, if you look at the stock market from like 1900 to about I think in the early 80s, it rose it was a tiny little slope graph from 1900 to about 83, 84, and then it goes exponential. It goes exponential as it's going today. Well, economically, the companies didn't become exponentially more productive, right? They didn't become exponentially more profitable. But what happened was, before that, there were these things in America called pensions. People had a pension. You worked for Ford, or you worked your life for a company and you got a pension. And that's the way it was. The stock market was for Mr. Howell on Gilligan's Island. Well, the stock market was for the elite in this country. It wasn't part of, it just wasn't. Normal people didn't buy stocks in the 60s and the 70s. 80s came around, and it was, I think, under Reagan where they had the 401k program, where it went from pensions to the stock market based retirement IRAs. So all of a sudden you have the stock market, which has the same number of stocks, right? The Dow actually is 100 stocks at a time. So you have the same number of stocks, but guess what you have now? You have a pipeline of money from the American workers on a monthly basis going where? It's going into the stock market because it has to. So when you think of supply and demand, if you have a pipeline of money coming into a fixed amount of things, what are those things going to do? Well, they're going to increase in price. So that's the artificialness I see about the stock market, is that it's exponentially driven up by the fact that there's an artificial pipeline of the American workers' money every month going flooding into the stock market. Do you know what I'm saying? And to me, that always was pretty sketchy, and no one ever really points it out. But if you look at a curve, it is a linear until we have 401ks, and then it just is. It's meaningless almost. That's my thought on that. I had to get it out.
Like you said, the pension programs, just like anything, with the greed factor, you start getting a taste of a certain amount. Well, that certain amount next time, like with heroin, or whatever. I don't know. I've heard.
I do.
The next amount, you need more. You know what I mean? Because the other isn't doing it anymore. So then you start going into what they call the instruments of derivatives. If you ever go down the rabbit hole of derivatives,
No, they're not.
It's derivative market, so-called value. It's like $4 quadrillion or 20. I don't know. It's unbelievable amount. You're never going to be able to pay that off. And all this paper market, these are paper contracts betting on all this and whatever, and they're always floating around, and everything's okay as long as everything's okay. One thing little over here goes, it domino, and everything starts coming down. Just like you're blowing up a balloon with water. You're pushing water in there, the balloon can get so big, and you're going to hit maximum saturation, and nobody's work. I mean, the official numbers aren't whatever, but you've got the unemployment claims numbers and all these other stuff. I mean, where's this revenue going to come from? You got people not paying property taxes. You got evictions starting now. And this is another thing is, you never mention, BlackRock and Blackstone. They're partnering up with the Federal Reserve as far as buying these properties. Because remember the quote when they said, you will own nothing and you will be happy? Because they're going to wind up buying all these properties and you're going to be renting the house that you used to own. And they might take a little bit of a loss on the initial purchase. They know down the road they'll probably make their 7%. I mean, there's going to be a two-tier system. Everything's pointing towards that.
I think we're getting closer and closer. I think it's already drifting in that direction. I think. I don't know. Man, is there any other topic? Because we've been here about an hour and 45 minutes. You're so gracious with your time. But I could talk with you for hours. I love going just talking about this stuff. I think about it too. Is there anything that you want to? Because I was going to give a chance if someone wanted to ask you a question from the chat or whatever. But is there any other thing you want to talk about before we kind of move on?
No, just take care of your families. Don't let you hear this stuff. You hear this talk. First thing is you get overwhelmed with it. You feel like you can't. The anxiety of it. Don't let that factor in.
And I found it's good to let because a lot of ideas rattle through my head, some crazier than others. And when you articulate them, you have to kind of filter it a little bit. Otherwise, you're just, otherwise I'd be taking me out of here on a crazy bed.
Yeah.
So
you gotta keep perspective.
It allows you to kind of to clarify your thoughts a little bit when you talk with people about it. And I love these conversations, and hopefully we could do it again sometime.
I hope I didn't come off as doom and gloom. That wasn't my intention.
No, not at all. Actually, not at all. No, you come off. In fact, no, I don't think you did at all. One thing I want you to think about this, because this is my thought, and it's crazy, I know, but we talk about currency. I absolutely, because I believe it should be based on energy, not anything, because that's what we use. Okay, think of this. Think in terms of this. Say you will go for a job and you work for, and you get, let's say it's watts. Watts is a good unit that we know about, electricity. So let's say you get 10,000 watts for a day's work, and you're paid in 10,000 watts. Well, what could you do with that 10,000 watts? Well, you drive a car, you can cook your food, you can turn on your lights, you can heat your water, you can, drive a car. I think I said that. You can pretty much do everything that you do. You can literally grow food, but you can take that watts and that's what you use as energy. That's what we use as energy. And the grid could be the bank, but that way, a watt in South America is worth the same as a watt in Tijuana, because a watt does so much work. Right. And what you have there is you have conservation built in, because the two companies making widgets, right? Widget A and widget B. The company who can make widget A for less energy wins. So conservation is built into that system. And I think because we only use energy. That's the only thing that's important to us is energy, because it allows us to move things. I'd like you to think about that, but to me, it makes perfect sense. And we have the bank already, the power grid, or batteries or whatever. but we use energy. We use watts. That's what makes our lives. That's what we use. That's what we spend our money on.
Right.
But anyways, my thought for today. I'm wondering. I did some edibles, by the way, and yeah, I'm starting to take effect. So it'll get less and less coherent.
It's nice talking with you. I was a little bit apprehensive because, like I said, you start talking about these type of things, most of the people, they tune out. They don't want to take it in. And I understand.
No, I do too. And you're right. Most people, especially even like politics, know very, very little about how the nuts and bolts of it, how it works. And the media cheats us. They don't tell us how it works in the electoral college and this and that and gerrymandering and all that. We don't know about it.
Well, but most people want to, our society today, if it's like the nail that sticks up gets the hammer. Everybody wants to fit in. Nobody really wants to know the dynamics of the bigger picture. They just want to go through their life, and I get that. It's no big deal.
Okay. Well, I have animals and stuff. I have a bladder to take care of. Sammy has been waiting down since the very beginning. I hope he has a question for you. But does anyone else have a question for Blackbird? We'll let him get back in his. I think it's a little later than it is out here. I'm on the West Coast, so I'll look for it, and I'm going to bring Sammy up here and see what he has to say. He's been patient for an hour and 50 minutes.
Man, hey, I was sitting back enjoying the conversation.
Oh, good.
You and Blackbird killed it. Blackbird, I want to say thank you for the information.
Sammy.
No information, just discussion.
An opinion.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for your opinion. I really understood your opinion, and your opinion really resonated with me because a lot of stuff you've informed, whatever. Make a long story short, man.
Sammy, you're breaking up.
People thought I was a fucking dummy. And people thought I was a dummy.
Okay, we're not gonna. You need a napkin, Sam, because you got a little brown on your nose, sir.
No, I mean, there you go. You too, Pat, man. You brought up some good things too about what you saw. Great, man. I really enjoyed sitting back in the stream. If you take a look at the chat, I was like trying to interact with you guys a little bit.
No, good. I appreciate. You know what? I'm surprised. I love having these conversations. We can talk about things. I know what sucks is I'm not big on this cancel culture thing where you can't. I think all ideas should be put out in the open and discussed. I truly believe that. I want a forum where we can make mistakes and I can be wrong. Everyone has a right to be wrong, and hopefully people, the more you practice, the more you can become open-minded and say, hey, maybe I'm not right here. I know it's not easy to say I'm not right. You're onto something, but the more you practice that, and I think we should not get rid of that. And that's what I like this for.
And here's something I've noticed in society too. Over time, I mean, I'm 46, so, I've seen, I pay attention to shit that goes on. And slowly but surely, I've been seeing our civil rights have been slowly diminishing, slowly going away, slowly but surely.
Hey, Sandro. Yeah, that's what's going on. What were you going to say, Blackbird, there?
I don't remember.
and you're not eating edibles.
No, I'm not.
What's interesting, and again, you intrigued me the way you came into I'm talking a little bit about it, and I won't ask you too many questions, how you came into this, and it was just the comments, how people responded to you, and you're a bit mysterious, and I think you either have a good sense of humor, which I think you do, a real dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because you play into the stereotype that they think they have about you, and it's
I'll be the audience you want me to be, or the character you want me to be, whatever. Like I said, I go about my daily life. Makes no difference. This is just an added supplemental.
No, this has been real interesting for me. I get definitely some enjoyment I don't know if you know it, little Sammy's right around the corner from me somewhere, lurking around here. We have lunch once in a while. I did yell the dog lips today, so I'm here amongst some of these characters. But it's interesting, and I enjoy this community. It could be rough. It could be really rough, and but we're adults, right?
Yeah, I can have a conversation with anybody. Like I said,
I'm glad you did.
you need to be open-minded about stuff. Even though you might not totally agree with 90% of it, you may get 10% out of that. And that's the way I look. The nuggets in the conversation, either thoughts, ideas, or whatever that I didn't either think about or consider, and that's always a bonus.
And another thing I agree on is human beings. Sitting down with another human being, no matter where it is on earth, you probably overlap 90% of what you believe is right. Even in America, I'm sure it's that or more, but we're led to believe that we don't. But when you sit down and talk with people, even that are like different ends of the spectrum, the common ground is much, much larger than what you think. And
Yeah.
I like to try to emphasize that if I can. But no, I like this space. It's actually weren't that many people coming in tonight, but oh well. And I'll leave it up to you. Usually I don't publish these, but I have no, either way, it doesn't matter. I do publish my Friday night show for my company, but this one I don't publish. But just as a general rule, if they
I'll tell
want
you what.
if they want the content, they have to be here.
Right.
I tell you what, Green Bicycles.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people didn't want to hear the truth.
You're being mysterious, Sam.
No, you said not too many people showed up or something like that,
Oh.
and I just was like saying nobody wanted to hear the truth.
I don't really. Truth is speculative. I just my own observation and analysis. That's all this is.
Well, I trust your observation and analysis.
No. And I'm just to tell you that what I get from you, and I'm going to make one speculation. I'm guessing at some point you had a career that involved a gun. I don't know. That's about as far as I would go with that. You're very you're meticulous. I think you pay attention to detail, and you come off in
Yes.
a good authoritarian way. Like you have,
Exactly.
So you have this interesting. Um, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but that's just and it's interesting and it's different and unique in this group. So
He's great at de-escalation, I bet.
And I'm glad you popped in. But was I right that at all? Did you? You don't have to say it if you don't want. I'm not.
No, my job didn't involve no gun.
Ever.
Mostly no.
Mostly no. Okay. I'm gonna call it a partial win on my place, and we'll just stop it right there. But anyways, no. I like because you do show us a little details in your life. Some of it surprises me a little bit. You got a lot of treasure. You got some interesting treasure.
It's protected. It's safe. It's safe.
I was a little envious too of one of those little honeys. I wouldn't mind one of those little honeys in a box. But
if you can, and that's the whole thing is in my closing statement here. You don't have to buy coins and bars and whatever. You can go still buy plated items, and you might not think, or people will give you shit, or talk down to you for buying these things. The time will come. It won't be tomorrow. If you're looking to make a buck right away, it ain't gonna happen. The time will come that they will be high enough. It will be worth the effort to strip the metal off of those items. So, and you can get them dirt cheap.
Good thinking, and I do agree. Actually, I bought some kilos of copper just because copper I think will be extremely important and in demand. That's about all. I don't, I have about 10 minutes of interesting things that usually I can get out of me. So I went way past my interesting tank. But
thank you for having me on.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Sammy, for coming up here. I'm going to
Well, thank you for the insight tonight, guys. I mean, you really entertained the shit out of me, and I enjoyed listening.
Wipe that brown off your nose, Sammy.
I'm just being honest. I mean, you want me
You're
to lie
not.
to
You're
you?
not in the will, Sam. You're not in the will.
Hey man, I don't care about all that. I'm just being honest. I mean, I really
Well,
enjoyed
thank you.
listening to the conversation tonight. It was awesome.
I appreciate it. I love to talk. I love to talk. And you let me. All right, let's just wrap it up. I take too long in doing this. Good night. Thanks for watching. Peace. Get a good night's sleep. I know I will. Good night, Sammy boy.
Night, man.